All right, guys, we're going to be doing chapters 7, 8, and 9. Journeys Out of the Body, Robert Monroe, 1971. And we'll do a little round of introductions. I'm Juice, hosting this from New York at my father's place, helping out during the pandemic, practicing over here, doing this over here. I've had a lot of since I have more time to practice now, I've had a lot more vibrations going on. I had one OBE since I've been here, and my father was on his he was on his iPad on the couch there, and it was during the morning. I got out of my body real quick, went up to him and tried to distract him, moving my hands, and then eventually I jumped into him, and then asked him later if he saw anything. He didn't, or felt anything. But I've done stuff. My father doesn't really believe in a lot of this stuff. He thinks it's hokey pokey stuff. So it's kind of funny to see him changing over the years, because he's actually seen during my practices, during 2 of my out of bodies, he's actually seen an apparition of me twice.
Nice.
And it's a whole long story, but it was cool to see that my father saw something weird like that he's never seen before. And the second time it happened, he called me up and he's like, "So by the way, what's going on with that OBE stuff you're doing?" I said, "It's funny you said that, because I've been practicing lately a lot more. And today I got out of my body and I went over to where you were, and he saw me at the foot of his bed." So that was
Cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he's interested in it, but he's kind of, back and forth about it. But it's pretty cool to see his views changing a little bit.
Did he see you as a solid person, or as a?
No, he saw me as he did see my physique there, but he saw me more of like a ghostly, cloudy figure at the foot of his bed. And the first time I did it, I was meditating on a cruise ship when I did it, and I didn't have any recollection of it. But it was exactly at the same time he saw me that I was doing the meditation, because sometimes people you don't actually remember going out of your body sometimes. It's just part of the process. But the second time I got out of my body, he saw me. I knew where I was. I knew I was near him, and he saw me, and that's when he called me up. So that one was pretty cool that happened that way.
Yeah.
And that was many years ago. That was, probably about 4 years ago. I have it in my notes. I haven't been practicing. I was practicing hardcore back then. Hopefully I'm getting back to that point now, but back then I was practicing hardcore. I was having all these crazy experiences, and hopefully I get back to there again, that area. All right, let's moving on. I'm just gonna go on the screen here to the first person that's to my right. And Ronnie, you're the first person to my right.
Hello. For those who haven't been here before, I'm Ronnie. I'm in Southern Nevada. I've been astral traveling on and off for over 40 years. I just calculated that. I didn't realize it was that long. I actually had an experience last night that was really cool. I got to meet some beings that is really hard to describe what they looked like. And the way they spoke was something my vocal cords can't even replicate. My mind can barely replicate it, but they were showing me symbols, some really interesting symbols. So I'm guessing it was something I was supposed to know, or maybe I knew and I just can't remember now. But it just seems like, every time it's something new now. So it's probably like that for most people at some point. It always changes and something new happens. And I'm starting to meet more people, besides yourselves. I'm running into other people that are doing other things that are astral travelers or very interested in it. So it's like the universe, once you open open your mind and the intention is there, it just starts happening from all different directions. So as usual, glad to be here. Glad to meet you guys and hear your stories. So that's it for me.
Very cool, Ronnie. Glad to hear that.
Cool.
Susan?
I've known you, well, how long have I known you? About 5 years? Has it been that long?
Yeah, I'd say 5 and change, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I've been astral traveling since childhood. I've taught classes in it at several places over the years, just because I love it. You know, it's just fascinating to me, and I think everybody should be able to do it. And you know, so I've taught it, and I've done some paranormal research for people, and I've done some cases, the last 2 things that I did, which is probably why I kind of slowed down everything I was doing about 4 or 5 years ago. I just kind of, because the last 2 cases that I worked on were, one was supposed to be a missing persons case, the other was supposed to be a suicide. And it was a lady that I knew, and it was her daughter who lived up on the East Coast. And anyway, both of them turned out to be murders, and involved one of them involved Texas Rangers, one of them involved military intelligence. It was just real intense. And both of these were kind of going on at the same time. And after they were over, I just went, I'm taking a break, and I'm still on break. I'm just kind of still on break. So this is great for me right here.
Thanks, Susan. Peter.
Yes. Well, yeah, I've been interested in this for about 30 years. I only had a very brief experience that I'm not even certain that it was a projection, but I've been trying it lately. And what happens most of the time is when I try to do it is I end up just falling asleep. And I wake up in the morning and go, I fell asleep again. So, you know, well, I guess I should wait till we get into after the introductions, but I have some questions about the book. I mean, you know, it's interesting that reading the book this time, as I said before, it's like I'd never read it before. I mean, there's so much he talks about here that I just had forgotten.
Right.
But I haven't been able to listen to the part that I missed the last meeting. So I don't know, you might have covered some of this, but I do have some questions about your experiences with some of the things he's talking about.
All right. Yeah. We'll bring those up shortly, Peter.
Okay.
Thanks. Marty,
Hey,
welcome back.
thank you. From Cocoa Beach, Florida, which I was having a little trouble getting my mic and everything working there at the beginning, but are you, Juice, are you involved in the space industry? Is that what I was hearing the tail end of there, or something about that? No?
No, we were just talking about Susan lives near where Elon Musk tests his SpaceX stuff over there.
Ah,
She's on the Gulf Coast there in Texas. So I was just like, that's all that stuff's going on in her neck of the woods.
yeah. Well, my neck of the woods, they're shooting the rockets off. So saw a really pretty launch night before last, and we have another one Sunday morning at
Oh,
4 in the morning, 4:30.
do you go out and watch it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're I never get tired of them. They're really, it's just like a miracle. But you wonder how many satellites could be up there, because the last one, I think there 60 satellites were coming out of it, went up to shoot them off, and same thing for the one on Sunday morning if it goes. But anyway, I've had intentionally 4 OBEs in the last couple of weeks. Now, I'm so frustrated because once I have one, then it's like I want to do more, and then it just seems like it won't happen. And then you think, I'm never going to have another one. But anyway, so that's, and my motivation was in connecting with the deceased. So these chapters that we just did were all about that. So that'll be interesting. And of course, Susan, I don't know if you, on the Facebook site, if you ever go on there, that I could put in a thing to private message with you on that. But anyway, I'd like to.
I'm on Facebook. I am. In Messenger, Facebook Messenger. Yeah.
And what is your last name, Susan?
I'm listed. It's Susan Austin Taylor. That's my name.
Susan Austin Taylor.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
I'll see you on there.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you. And such an honor to an inspiration to see you all.
Thanks.
Same.
I'm just sitting here with all y'all.
Kathy. Hello, Kathy.
Yes, hello.
There you are.
Yes, I'm Susan's friend, and I'm not an adept at getting out of my body. I've had spontaneous things happen a few times from sleep and intentionally while awake only a few times. But I'm very much interested in dreams and the psychology of dreams and young and shadow work and the unconscious. And I'm wanting to see if there's an overlap in these areas. And if in fact an out-of-body experience might even be interpreted as a kind of a dream and in the style of Jungian analysis. So that's kind of where my interest lies. And I'm glad to be here and to meet everyone and to hear the experiences y'all have had.
Thanks, Kathy. And the last 2 days ago, Nikki had some kind words to say about you and your meditation that you did, which helped her have her OBE experience. So she was very grateful.
Yes, yes, I've been in contact and she told me and was very excited about it. And so, yay.
I did post that one on YouTube. So if anybody missed it, go back and check it out. So, okay, Dave.
Thanks, Juice. Glad to be back, everybody. My name is Dave. I'll just reveal a little bit more about myself. I suffer from a narcolepsy type 1 with severe cataplexy, which means I transition into the hypnagogia state quite often with a severely reduced time as compared to a neurotypical. What this means is it has to do with what we're talking about actually. What it means is I experience audio and visual hallucinations as I'm entering and bypassing the REM state. I don't have REM state like a standard neurotypical. Within 5 and 10 minutes of falling asleep, I'm actually, my brain rhythmic activity is already in the delta wave of 0.5 hertz to 4 hertz. So I've been trying to figure out, is it just that's happening to me, or am I actually experiencing something else? And I've been through a lot of sleep studies with different agencies to figure it out, which I mentioned one the last time I spoke.
Wow, very interesting.
The last thing is, because of all of this, my neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, produce a tremendous amount of hormones when I lucid dream.
Wow. So are you trying to piece it together with the all this stuff back and forth, and
Well,
you kind of got like a easier pass into this area?
I guess to answer your question, just the reason why I'm trying to piece some of this together is because unfortunately, someone with my condition could eventually develop schizophrenia because of the hallucinations.
Right.
So that's a big reason why I'm trying to piece this together. Some of the stuff that we talked about, that's a common thing for me to a level that I can't even put into words today. But thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think Robert Monroe, I forget which chapter, but he gets into that schizophrenia and stuff, and from what I remember, those parts is like they're the ones who's tapping into this a lot easier.
Yeah.
This area, and they can get into it a lot easier, and sometimes they get locked up for it because of their one foot's in this world and one foot's in the other world, so much back and forth. So that's pretty interesting.
Thanks,
all right, thank you. Stephanie.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sound
All
good.
right. Excellent. So, yeah, my name is Stephanie. I have been with this group since almost the very beginning, and Juice had passed the torch off a number of years ago. So, I got started in this when I was 13 and never stopped. I've had experience. I've found validation, and it really opened a lot of doors for me, and my life is different for it. So it's a big deal for me, and I would love to see everyone else have that experience. So, can I segue into a neat synchronicity about the day?
Sure.
Awesome. So, on the drive home, I'm playing with the radio, and I land on a channel that is going to do a radio interview with a guy from Spirit Science. And Juice, you know them from YouTube. They made a bunch of little animation videos, and one of them was about astral projection, and it was very, very beautiful, happy little uh, kind of a trailer for promoting or just showing how cool astral projection is. And we've shown it in the meetup before. So I just naturally like those guys. But then here's this guy on the radio saying that he had been in the spirit science group in California for years, and he found Jesus and left the New Age movement.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard of this, and I like, no way. So I found the station online, and I was listening to that right before this meetup. It started around 5 Central, and Googled it, and yeah, sure enough, not all of them, of course, just one of the animators or something. So I just barely got started researching that. And then I had Monroe's book in my hand because I didn't want to be researching that. I wanted to be reading Monroe's book before the meetup last minute, right? And I popped open to chapter 7, which was about religion. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm looking forward to reading. Yeah, it's called "Cause the Bible Tells Me So," and like, oh, I can't wait to when that meetup comes up. And I thought your group was doing like a chapter by chapter, not like groups of chapters. So I thought that was off in the future. And then I clicked on the meetup and saw, oh, we're doing all of them. Okay, like 7, 8, and 9 today. All right. I better read that then. So so I read a portion of it, and I read just the part about the wall he runs into, and that was great because I remember that very vividly, but I don't remember the context of why he brought it up. And I guess because it was just so spooky to think that there could be a um, something blocking you from going somewhere at all. So I forgot context. So now I see the context. Like, oh, cool. He's pointing out that he made these desperate pleas for help and prayers, and nothing happened. So, oh, cool. Like, here's one example of someone who's been immersed in the New Age movement for many years and converted. And then here's right back to back a chapter on this guy who gave it a try and found objectively it did not work. So wow, cool.
So Steph, you're saying you basically gave up and just went to religion because you couldn't do it?
Well, I just got started poking around. I can't tell why he left the New Age movement and went to Jesus. But he made a whole website about it, and so it won't be long till I get a grasp on his deal is.
Right. Thanks, Steph. All right. Here we go, guys, into chapter 7. So here's a little recap on chapter 7. Looks like a lot of verifications with meeting dead loved ones and stuff like that. Chapter 7, and ghosts. So in the beginning of chapter 7, Monroe has a friend who is dying and tries to help them with OBE information by giving it to his wife. to give to him on his deathbed to try to help him see that, to not be afraid of death as much, and maybe actually experience a little bit of it as he's dying. And after he dies, Monroe tries to contact him. And he also tries to contact other people in here, this chapter, including his father. So would anybody like to bring up any information or questions or discussions on chapter 7? Susan?
Yeah, when that was one of my favorite chapters in the book. And when I first read it, it was in the early 70s when I first read the book. And I've been doing out of body stuff since I was a child, but I really, really got good at it when I was in my late teens and 20s and on and on. So when I read, because I'd already done most of what he'd said in the book, I'd already experienced most of those things and different things. But when he talked about that you could get out, that he had done it, that he had gotten out of body and he had gone to see someone in spirit who had passed. And at that time, my aunt, well, it was later than that, but I remembered it and I did try it. And I did get to, I've been there multiple times, but I was able to sit and talk with an aunt who was, had cancer at the time, years after I read that. And I talked to her about the fact that, I said, well, let's make a visitation agreement. So if I go first, I contact you. If you go first, you contact me. And we talked all about this. And I said, told her what all I thought she could do. And I said, you will show me things that you can do that I didn't know about, but I just come and see me. Well, when she did pass, I got impatient, and she was the first person that I went to see there out of body. And it was awesome. It was just awesome. It went perfectly. I planned it for months. It took me months to do it. And it's to me, it's harder than a typical out of body experience, because what you're trying to accomplish is a little bit different. You're not, the place that you're trying to get to, if you want to call it a place, it just requires more intense concentration. But I did get there, and it was wonderful. It was similar to his experience, except that I got to talk back and forth to her for a little bit. So I love that chapter. That chapter in the book where he spoke about it, I had never thought to even try it. I wouldn't have thought to try it if he hadn't mentioned it. So I was really glad that I had read that. It is quite possible. It may take you a while to do it, but you can do it. They're reachable. You won't be able to stay. They won't let you. You don't get to stay. I've tried, but Monroe that had mentioned this, and that it was even possible. So I thought, if he can do it, I'm going to try. And you can do it.
Yeah, Susan, he mentions it when he tries to contact his dead father.
Yeah.
It was really nice when he first met him real quick, but then he brought up, what did he said something that kind of changed the energy, and it didn't last too long. And his father kind of turned to sadness, and he didn't stay long. And he's just like, I have to go back. Yeah, it was really fast with his father.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said in there too, at the end, he wasn't sure if he'd ever visit his father again. And I don't remember in the future books if he does. I don't know if anybody does out there remembers that, but
yeah, I don't remember him mentioning it in the second book. I haven't read the third book yet. That's one that I just got because I had never read that. But I liked the detail, the way he wrote it. So it was very easily understandable to anybody who's an astral projector. And the only thing that I could add to what he said was, your coordinates indeed are the person's name or how that person feels to you. If you can carry either one with you, it's much easier to get to them And but you have to really, you don't have to yell it like he did. You don't have to. I thought you did the first time I tried it. I thought you did, but you don't. You just have it fixed in your mind. You hold it until you get there.
Right.
And so yeah, I agreed with a lot. I had a question, something that interested me in these chapters, where he spoke about prayer, and that no one helped him, you know, most of the time. Sometimes he would get help that he hadn't asked for. Sometimes he would be begging for help and sobbing and trying to get help, and nothing happened. But the situation still resolved itself. And I've just always felt safe and accompanied, even if I can't see anybody. I've always felt safe. I've had some scary experiences, but what I thought was the most curious is that he had a Catholic background. Monroe had a Catholic background. And so he, of course, would refer to God as Father, and in a masculine way. When I approach that threshold where I'm trying to get help or whatever out of body, or even just in meditation or whatever, and I try to interact or try to contact deity, you know, to speak to the source, it feels feminine. The more I get, the further I go in age, and as I approach this, you know, this source or whatever, the energy of it or whatever, it just feels like this more and more feminine. I wondered, so we're in Aquarius now. We're actually in, we're moving into, we're coming out of Kali Yuga, moving into Sat Yuga, right? So that is feminine. This new age is supposed to be the age of the divine feminine again. You know, we rotate back and forth, back and forth. We've been in this period of divine masculine, or I'm not sure if it was that divine most of the time, but the masculine, it was the masculine, the patriarchy. And now we're kind of moving into a matriarchal thing. And I wonder, you know, maybe we will perceive deity more as a feminine presence now, possibly, than back, say, 40, 50 years ago. I don't know. Because as I approach it in meditation or anything, my impression, what I feel, is a motherly presence, like a more of a maternal energy to me. So when I address it, I address it as a God, goddess, mother, divine mother, because that's for some. And I was raised in a Christian church. So I have all that tradition behind me, but today now it feels like I'm addressing the feminine aspect now. I think that's what's come forth, and I guess that's what the world needs now. Really, is some divine feminine influence. Oh, I'm sorry that was long. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if anybody if you as somebody's talking, if just remember, you can always put a hand up if you want to, and you'll be called most likely next.
Most likely. I just want to comment on that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Susan. That wasn't too long at all. Like, that really resonates, and that's what I've been getting the impression of for years, is that that's transitioning, and that basically the collective avatar or something, there's an essence of a divine mother who had basically fallen asleep, or had just kind of zoned out and lost, was no longer present in this energy realm or earth and everything, and that it is waking up, and it is everything is shifting as it's waking up.
Yeah.
Thanks. Ronnie?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, how they say, you know, I've read a lot that when you pass on, say, you know, if you're a Catholic or a Christian, you know, there's a good chance you're going to be met by a Jesus figure. If you're a Buddhist, you'll be met by, you know, Buddha possibly, you know, and depending on your religion, that is what you might be met with. And I was just wondering if you relate more to, a feminine energy, if that's not what you connect with when you're out there, not necessarily that the whole thing is feminine or masculine or whatever. It's just that you're kind of met with whatever it is that you relate to the most. What do you think about that?
Robert Monroe brings up in these chapters that he goes to a point in Locale 2. This is just in Locale 2 he's talking about, that he's in a place of like pure bliss and love, and a place where he doesn't want to leave. And he feels both there at Locale 2. He both feels, there's actually none. There's no feminine, there's no masculine. It's just all one. So he has some type of a feeling of all one. Anybody else?
That makes sense to me.
I thought I understood the universe to be, or multiverse, whatever, to be like physicals on the bottom, and then etheric and astral, mental, Buddha level, and then there's like the seventh plane that's like realm of angels or whatever they say, and then that's kind of it. And above that's the Godhead, the source of all. But I've come to find it's actually once you reach that oneness, that nirvana, all is one state, like, oh, that's just a cluster. There's a whole new set of base, and then that, and then that, and then up from there, and then a whole oneness grouping, and then more, and perhaps to infinity. We don't know. Like the actual source of all the source is pretty far from us, and so surely the source of all the source is not one or the other, masculine or feminine, right? But so our more localized God, you could say, may very well be more feminine.
Marty?
I have a question about, he's still talking about being in Locale 2, is that correct?
He gets into in chapter 8, he gets into a lot of Locale 2. So he's in all different ones, but the big one is Locale 2 and chapter 8.
Yeah, and I guess I'm confused. I mean, Susan, you're saying you've been and had the similar experiences to him, so maybe you would understand or know the answers to this, or I don't know, Juice, if you've also been. But in chapter 5, he was talking about that Locale 2, now this is, I wrote this down, quote, is peopled mostly with insane or nearly insane, emotionally driven people, alive or asleep or drugged or dead, but emotionally driven, disjointed personalities, disjointed beings. And then we have the nirvana, and then we have the park where people are sitting and waiting for someone to come and guide them. So how do you have all these different scenarios all in Locale 2?
Yeah, a lot going on there.
I know it doesn't, when you hear like what I just said, it doesn't seem like a very nice place to be, but then there's nirvana at the same.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
That's why I think that we wind up in places based on our vibrational level where we're at. It's not necessarily that there are like exact places that everyone will go to. I think a lot of it has to do with where we're at as a soul spiritually, how we think, how we feel, how we vibe is that, depending on where you might wind up. That's why we all have all these different experiences,
Well, I get what you're saying. It's just that he was calling it Locale 2, I mean.
right, yes. Yeah, to comment on that, I've listened to a lot of Monroe tapes, and it used to frustrate me that he would go straight from Locale 10 or Focus 10 straight to Focus 12. Like, where's 11? And then there's something up in 27, and like they're not, maybe they're linear-ish, but and then 15 is the kind of this nice timeless state. Like, that seems sideways. But so yeah, that used to annoy me, but I learned that Monroe himself tried actually really hard to not make it into this elaborate, thing that you could turn into dogma. He wanted it to be kind of random and meaningless. Like number 10, he said, just kind of big, he picked number 10 out of his ass. Like he wanted it to not have a strong association with anything else. He didn't want it to be the happy place or anything that's custom to Monroe or any of that stuff. He thought that was all, kind of dogmatic. And he tried really hard not to. So when he does Locale 1, Locale 2, he's making it really rudimentary, just like an arrow, really. He doesn't want it to be an elaborate map. So if you're looking for a map, which I was, I really like the structure that Robert Bruce built up. So he takes the approach of like, well, if you're on Earth and you find a new continent, how do you map it? Well, you send out people one at a time to try the left side, the right side, and then you see where they overlap, and then you figure out this big elaborate map after you have a whole bunch of expeditions. And so, same thing, you could take 1,000 astral projection experiences and see where they overlap and kind of build a map of the territory from there and see if there's any kind of structure. And there is. So in his structure, there's lower astral, mid astral, and upper astral plane. So astral is defined by the place where your mind can affect matter, but there's still what seems to be matter. There's up and down, there's objects, there's form and shape and buildings and structure, there's land, landscape, air, and all that. But you would see as normal at first, but you can affect it. So above that is mental plane, where it's not even recognizable. It's all color and light show and thought and abstraction. So it's kind of distinguishable that way. So the astral, where stuff at least looks normal, you have a body of sorts. Everything has tangible object, space, structure. Within the astral, there's the mid-astral, which is like collective cities and fun places, and then in the upper astral is the heavenly zones, the high vibe, radiant joy, happy stuff is all there. The lower astral has all the hellish stuff that you just described, and so he groups it in that sense, like what are the attributes of the space. Okay, from there, what's the vibration? Is it happy high vibe? Is it sad low vibe? And then if you ever try to transition yourself from one to the other, it really does feel like you're going up, like up in frequency technically, right? But there it does seem to be like a up a notch or a higher frequency, higher, smaller, higher vibration. All that really is pretty tangible. But yeah, I'm with you on the confusion on the terms. I wouldn't try to make a map of the last landscape out of Monroe's terms, and I think that's his point. He did it on purpose.
And Steph, he got those the focus levels from his gateway experiments. Do you know that?
In what sense?
He was channeling different entities, and they helped him with the focus levels during the gateway programs.
Cool.
I dug that info up. It's actually, I've heard him talking about it. Monroe himself talking about it. Susan.
Oh, I just wanted to talk about the locale thing that he had going on, because see, I've read 2 of the Monroe books. I've read back in the 70s. I haven't read as much as a lot of people have on astral projection, because since I was doing it, I didn't want, when I first started, because I've kept a notebook since my mid-teens, I've got boxes of notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of this travel diary that I've kept. But I didn't want to be influenced by other people's experiences. I was glad to read the part in the Monroe book that told me, said he had gone to see someone in the afterlife. So I tried that. But when it came down to locales, when I've been out and I've experienced so many different places and stuff, but I never broke it down like that. I never did that. I referred to it sort of as here and now Earth, a perfected Earth, then higher, then higher vibrational realms after that. Now I hear about the, and in shamanic training, there's something called a lower world journey. And I was always told by my instructor at the time, don't do it if, unless you're extremely experienced, don't do it. You may find it hard to get back from where you are and all of this. But what I did do is I thought, I want to try it astrally. Instead of in a shamanic journey, I'm going to try it astrally and go down to these lower levels where all this, stuff that Monroe talked about and other people talk about in shamanic terms. And so I did that, and it's a vibrational thing. It is just going into a more dense, and it feels like you're going lower and going upper when you're going up. It is strange, like Steph said, but I did get to this low place where, and there were all of these things, if you did not move, they didn't notice you. But as soon as you moved, they were right there on you and just nibbling on you. It's like these little piranhas, little they just look like little critters, and they were biting. They were trying to feed off of you. If you got very still, they would give up and they would go away. They would just swim away or fly away. And I thought about that while I was there, and I remember Monroe said, he got out of, he experienced something like that, and he got himself out of it. I can't even remember how he did. I thought I stayed very still, and I just thought of my body and went back in body. I only did that once. But I always have to do everything once for myself just to see, so the locale thing, and I have the Robert Bruce book. I read just a little bit of it. I've never read the whole book because there again, I didn't want to be influenced by anybody else's experiences. Yeah. So I recognize when they're talking about different locations, or it seems like different locations and different densities, and places having their own vibrational signature. I recognized all of those same things. I just didn't label them the same. So what I have noticed in the books that I have read is that I'm going to say about half of the people that I've talked to or have read they mention it. They talk about the levels and these, I'm in real Earth, I'm in perfected Earth, I'm in a lower etheric plane, I'm in a higher etheric plane, I'm in the past, I'm in the future, whatever. I never divided anything. I would just record what happened and try to figure it out later. And so that Monroe divided it as he did. And I wonder how many people have experienced exactly, the place that Monroe was at. I never have. I've seen similar, but I don't think I've ever been to where he was, because that was Monroe. So it was just different. It's just different for everybody. And that was it. It was just a thought. It was just a thought.
Juice, you have your hand up? Oh wait, that's me. I forgot I could put my hand up too. Yeah, Susan, I'm the same way. I didn't want to read too much in the beginning either because I feel like it's going to influence my mind. So now when I'm reading a lot more now today, I'm like, oh gosh, is my mind going to start making this up, or am I really going to go to these worlds and stuff? So I'm with you on that. Yeah. And yeah, when he got stuck, it was in Locale too, and he considered that area as a hell area. And when he went through there, if he didn't go fast enough, he figured out a way to get through it. And if he didn't make it through there fast enough, then they would start catching up to him and start getting him.
Yeah.
So he eventually figured out a way how to get past it real quick. And he doesn't like it at all. Yeah.
I thought he said the opposite, that if you went through too fast, they would attack him. But if you went through calmly, that he could get through it.
Oh, that's you could be right, Peter. Yeah. I knew it was one or the other. All right, guys, I got a poll for you on chapter 7 here. If you don't mind, I'm going to pull that up. that kind of relates to chapter 7. And come on. All
Where do
right.
you the poll? I don't.
Oh, it's going to come up on your screen in a second here. Here we go. Chapter 7 poll. From my OB experience and stuff yet, I totally don't believe that there's life after death yet, unfortunately. Hopefully one day I'll get there. Even though I had out-of-body experiences, it still doesn't convince me that there's life after death. Would anybody like to comment on that poll? Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, the polls are sort of yes or no, but since, I've had the thing with my husband just dying, I should lead up that in my entire life, I've been about 95% atheist and 5% agnostic, until he died. And then when I had a series of signs from him, one of the things was I started worrying about him reincarnating and me never being able to see him again, And I started beseeching him to hang on and wait for me and don't, my exact words, I think, were, don't you dare reincarnate with us. And I have a friend who's kind of psychic, and she called me in tears and saying that she'd been driving along and she heard his voice loud and clear in her car and had to pull over. And he was saying, and he repeated it several times, tell Marty I will wait for her. So, I mean, these are, I have a list, that's one of the things on the list. But when you have numerous things like that, it's, so it's not just the OBE. The OBE was the icing on the cake.
Right.
But anyway, I don't know if that helps you any, Juice.
Yeah, Marty, Monroe talks about that too, with his proof of all these can't be all coincidences, all the experiences that he has. So hopefully one day I'll get there with that. Dave.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes. When they said OBE, can I assume then they're referring to an ejection from the physical body that was unplanned and not an actual? Yeah. Okay.
Yep, unplanned or planned.
Oh,
You can have an OBE being unplanned.
I thought astral projection was planned and OBE was unplanned.
No, OBE can be planned or unplanned. The same with the astral projection too. As far, yeah.
Okay. And regarding that, I think it was the second question as well. The reason why I put no is because until I'm able to initiate a conscious astral projection with decision-making capabilities, everything else I'm uncertain of. Yeah, that was the reasoning behind why I put no.
Right. Was there a no on there? I don't. Oh, okay. Are you talking about the poll?
That's correct.
Okay, I didn't see a no on there, so I didn't even know you put a no.
Oh.
But now that I know, there's a no. So on chapter 7, to conclude that, he contacted his dead father, which is great. And also he had a ghost sighting. He rented out a house when his new house was being built, and he had a sighting that he doesn't consider, I believe, as an out-of-body experience, but he was laying down and he saw a ghost of a woman that died a year before in the house that he was staying in. And she was talking about paintings. And he verified that with his neighbor. He verified it by some of the things that she said to him when Monroe saw her, and also what she looked like too. He was able to pick her out from a picture from his neighbor's house. All right, chapter 8. And chapter 8 gets into the Bible and gets into prayer, which we've been talking about a little bit. So would anybody like to bring up something about the Bible, prayer for chapter 8?
I want to ask, since I didn't make it to yesterday's last meeting or the Wednesday meeting, did you guys talk about chapter 5, this part where there's a big arch structure in the astral planes?
Yes.
with the
We
church.
didn't talk about it, Steph, but yes, I know what you're talking about. You
Has
want
anybody
you want to say a few things about it?
Yeah. So it's on topic since it's about so these three chapters are about touching on religion and the heaven realms. And so going back to chapter 5 real briefly, there's one little paragraph that stood out to me. It's a fun story. If someone was skim reading and missed this part, it's pretty funny. And for me, synchronistic because I had read that not realizing which chapter we were on at first, and that was really relevant. And I had a highlight on this one. So anyway, the story is he and apparently a number of others, and even he himself a number of times, have witnessed this specific structure. So if you go to the astral planes a lot, apparently you'll end up going to kind of like a city or a communal zone. And there's one city in the astral supposedly that has this big archway, this big art structure, and it's this big it's like crude drawings of stick figures, and it tells this elaborate story, and everyone, all the locals know about it. And so he asked his helpers what the heck that means, and he said his helpers told the story with some humor, almost apologetically. It seems that almost measureless time ago, a very wealthy and powerful woman wanted to ensure that her son would get into heaven. A church offered to guarantee this to her, provided she paid the church a tremendous sum of money. The woman paid the church, but her son did not get into heaven. So we can infer that she was on a regular timeline, whatever, in the normal church, and then she died and saw herself that he was not there. So she paid all that for nothing. So in anger and revenge, she used her entire remaining wealth and power to have this sign put up in the skies of heaven so that throughout all eternity all who saw it would know of the dishonesty and rascality of that particular church.
Oh yes.
And it's been there so long, people forgot who she was and everything, but no one can take it down. It's sure like the thought pattern that built it was really powerful.
I remember when I read that, I was like, come on, don't they have a higher level of forgiveness in the next realms?
Not necessarily. Better be nice, Juice.
Oh, I'm nice. I'm trying to be nice. Let me segue into one in chapter 8 here, where he's in Locale 2, and he talks about everything in the heaven part of Locale 2 now. That everything once in a while comes to a standstill when this big God figure comes passing through. So this big giant God figure comes passing through, and all the beings get down and they lay on their belly. And no, they lay on their back, so their abdomen's exposed, the most vulnerable part of the body, as this thing goes by. And Monroe does it too, because he doesn't want them to think that he's just somebody who just happened to tap in that area for a little bit. What would happen if they found out that he's just temporarily there? So he's a little scared. So he just followed the rules. And then once this God figure just passes, everybody just gets up and goes along and does their thing. Just like he says, like a stoplight or something like that, where the cars stop and then they just go again.
Yeah, has anybody seen this arch in the sky that he describes?
I've never seen an arch in the sky. As I recall, I've traveled in a great arc many, many times. If I'm trying to get to the past, if I go time travel, it's to the past, but past or future, the travel, the trajectory of my travel has always been an arc. It's like I just go to the end of the galaxy and then just do this hairpin thing and come right back down, and wherever I stop is where I was supposed to be going. into this past. So I found that I just read that today. I was rereading those chapters today, and I remembered I was looking through the books, and I was remembering when he said something about that, and the fact that I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't think that I have. It's not it may be back in my notebook somewhere, but I don't recall having seen it. But I compared it to the travel, the way that I traveled, and I wonder if it was related in any way. I always wondered that.
Earlier, I think it was Steph or Susan talked about prayer, and Robert Monroe talks about it in this chapter a lot. And I think Stephanie, you talked about the barrier he got stuck in, and he asked for help, and he prayed the way he was brought up. He prayed, he did this, and they didn't help him. So he doesn't totally understand what prayer is. He's talking about in this chapter. He doesn't even know if he's doing it right or it's just nonsense prayer, because he's been helped out many times, and many times where he really needed the help, nobody ever helped him. Dave?
I've never had a dream about the arches, but when I was a kid, starting at the age of 4, I used to have a lot of dreams about massive stadiums where angels would train for war. You would see them. I remember being one of the trainers, and they would train younger angels to prepare. I use the word angels because I can't think of any other word to describe them. But they were in these big stadiums, and that's where they would congregate to prepare to fight whatever they were going to fight. I don't think that's in the book, but it started at the age of 4, and yeah.
And you said, Dave, you said you helped train?
Yeah. I remember some of the things I remember, because it happened more than once. I remember seeing they would use these there weren't holograms. They would use these shadow-looking beings just as tall as the ones training the younger angels to fight, and they were just as big, and they would use them, which would be more their counterparts. And I've been dreaming about that stuff since the age of 4 until about the age of 12, approximately, of these kinds of beings. I've dreamt of many planets. They were pretty lucid, but the control over my lucid dreams started happening about 6 or 8 months ago. Severe control, like levels that I've never seen before in my life. But no, I have never seen. I have to always use the word dream. I've never seen something like that. I did have an experience like that big figure they were talking, similar to that, kind of how he said he was trying to pretend like he was with like them.
Right.
I remember an experience. I was flying because I learned how to fly at the age of 17. By the age of 17, and I remember flying. And I saw these mountains, and just, it was so lucid. I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm experiencing this. And when I flew down, there were all these beings in a circle. There was a giant angel. There was another being. He was green and smaller. There was it was weird. They were all different sizes, and they were playing some kind of game on these rocks. And I flew and I landed behind them. And all of a sudden, I heard one of them say, he's there, you know that, right? And he wasn't invited. And I said, my God, are they having a conversation about me? And the tall one, the big angel, very big angel looking one, said, yeah, I know, it's okay. He comes every now and then. And he said, well, at least let him show himself, because it's rude for him to just sit behind that rock. And I just stood up and I showed myself to them. So I remember that feeling, a little bit of what he wrote, and I try to pretend like, I didn't exist and I was just trying to hide from them. But I was definitely in awe.
Right. Wow. Susan?
Oh, I was just going to make a comment that we listen to each other's experiences and this experiences of Robert Monroe and different people who've written books. And personally, if I had had an experience out of body that was exactly like something Robert Monroe had experienced, if I'd had the exact same experience, I would have been instantly suspicious of it, which is one reason I didn't read a lot of out of body stuff. But we're all individuals, and I think that we often go to the same places as each other, and we have different experiences of the place because we are individuals. And I think that we're out. I used to, when I found out that it was a common, other people get out of body, this is something that's been going on forever, I thought how much information could have been amassed by everybody just pitching in what they've learned, because everybody has a different perspective. Because I think that we go out for different reasons. I think that we're called out much of the time. I believe that when Monroe called for help, and the times, judging, I'm going with my own experience of this, when he called for help and he didn't get help, I don't think he actually needed help. I think that he was there to learn how to do this himself. And if you really, really can't do it, that you're okay still, that you're still going to get, somebody will step in. You may not even ever know that somebody stepped in to help you, but you're there to learn something and to experience something. And you have this, this story to tell when you get back that's going to be different from anybody else's. But the times that I called for help, and sometimes I would get help, sometimes I didn't feel like I was getting help, but I always learned from that experience. If I didn't feel like I'd gotten help, I figured it out. And that's what I think they want, the beings that attend to us out there, whether you call them your angels or your guides or just companions, astral companions, whatever they are, teachers, whatever they may be. They understand that you're there to learn something. Each one of us are there for a specific reason, our own reason, and perhaps their reasons as well. And it's why they help us to get out, and we're doing all of this. So we're all out here on these little information gathering missions. And so we all have these tales of these different places. We don't call them the same things, but I can see how they overlap and how we've all been in places that each other has probably passed through or been to, but we're all, for different reasons, we're on different missions, sort of, on little errands, different things that we're trying to learn. And when it's really unpleasant and it feels like, oh, this was just a horrible experience, but yeah, but you did get out of it because you're back in your body. You got out of it. Even if you didn't feel like help came, you figured it out on your own. Maybe that was what you were there for, is to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, good point. Let's see. So if Robert Monroe says if hell and heaven exist, it'll be in Locale too, somewhere in there, he believes. But from his experience of his education on the Bible and growing up religious, he doesn't see any real heaven and hell so far in his first book. But he does get to a place in Locale too that he says feels like home, with music and love and connection. And he got there 3 times and he didn't want to come back. The only way he went back to his body is because helpers brought him back. He wanted to stay there. It was so nice, so loving, such a connection, the music, everything, vibration. That's where there was no male, there was no female. It was just all one. And he got there 3 times. So I'm going to bring up a poll here on chapter 8.
I'm having trouble with the first one because the options.
Yeah, I think there should be another option.
I believe in afterlife, and we go on into higher dimensions, and you can call it heaven. The higher you go, the higher you go. But I have never had any indication, and I've been told that there is no hell. There is no, you create it yourself. And so I don't believe in hell. I don't.
I agree. They're too black and white.
So
It's a little black and white, I know, in there when Monroe talks about it.
Well, like, what's the context? The context is there any heaven and is there any hell? Yes, no? Or is the context, is there a specifically Christian heaven and hell?
I guess your concept of the words heaven and hell to this point, you could break it down a lot, I guess. I guess whatever pops up in your mind is what heaven and hell, what you were brought up thinking. And if you're not sure, not sure. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm going to say no on that one because, oh, I can't get to the third one. Let me see if I can get down to it. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yeah.
I just really think that we can create our own heaven and our own hell if we want to, or if we don't. You know, once again, if we're not on the right vibe,
Yeah.
that
Right,
stuff
there's
is
implication. If there is a heaven, are there rules in order to get there? You know, there's all this other underlying concepts.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to comment on this, Paul?
I have something to say about prayer because in my, I have done channel writing starting when I was, well, that started when I was in my teens also. And some of it's been published. But I had asked one time about prayer for a description of prayer or what prayer actually accomplishes. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it said, but it was something like this. It said that prayer is a powerful mobilizing force for the thought process, that prayer crystallizes, let's see, it crystallizes
intent.
the thought, yeah, your thought forms into this necessary one-pointedness, which brings about realization of desire. That's what people are going for there. But it is also it's an appeal to higher forces, not necessarily deity. It's an appeal to higher forces for assistance. And if it's done properly, that it never goes unanswered or unnoticed. Now, you might not get an answer right away. You might not get the answer you were expecting, but it never goes unnoticed or unanswered. It is a communication with higher beings. So yeah. So that's for me, prayer. Yeah, prayer works. It may not get the results I want or expect, but it is a communication. We're telepathic. It's a telepathic communication with higher beings, with higher forces. In my opinion, that's my experience of it.
Ronnie?
I strongly feel that whatever we come up against, that each and every one of us has the power to deal with that on our own, that we're more powerful than anything that we can come up against. It really comes down to your you can call it faith or belief. And if you believe it, you'll overcome it. And the prayer part, I know when people get in trouble, a lot of times they'll pray, which I'm totally cool with that. But I think that when you pray, like Susan was saying, you crystallize, basically, in my opinion, you crystallizing your intention. You know, this is what you want. And by praying, and especially if you have faith in your prayer, you're literally crystallizing your intention, and the universe, whatever you want to call it, gives it to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Dave?
I couldn't
Oh.
say yes to that one because, again, kind of too black and white for me, because there are cases where, I mean, anyone can answer your prayer. I mean, that's true for this world too. Anyone can technically answer your prayer if they know about it or by coincidence. So also in the astral, you're telepathic, and if you place a request, then anyone of any intent could, you know, show themselves as whatever they want to show themselves as, or read your mind, and perhaps, you know, basically you may not want to just trust 100% of all prayer response. Therefore, does prayer work? Well, not necessarily always. And so that's my caveat.
Steph? Dave?
I'm sure a number of you have figured out by now that I'm a bit nervous talking about this stuff, but it feels good to get it off my chest. Regarding that last question, I don't know if I think you might be aware, but in March 1995, a number of human beings contacted the Monroe Institute to let them know that, I don't think it was publicized though, but to let them know that they had received visitations from him after his death, March the 17th. I did not know Mr. Monroe or who he was until 1996. But in the month of March 1995, I did dreamed about him. And I wrote down his dream, and I contacted the Institute a year later when my cousin was going through my dream book. And that's when I worked with Lori for 6 months. So I don't know if that constitutes seeing someone that passed away, but the thing was, I wasn't dreaming. I was actually meditating, and I did something I shouldn't have done. I meditated for 2 hours straight. And that I've learned not to do that anymore.
Did they get back to you, the Institute?
Yeah, I worked with them for 6 months. They offered for me to go down there, but I said I was just too nervous. It was what I saw and what he showed me in the experience was more than I could handle. But I did continue working with them after that. The first time I didn't work with Lori was the second time I worked with Lori. And then when I tried to reach back out to them, unfortunately, she had passed away.
Marty?
That's all. Oh, I want to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on that real quick.
Yeah.
When you go into the second, especially on the third book, like time is not so stable apparently, and he gets into time travel stuff in the third book for sure. I don't remember which one where he starts with that, but that's entirely possible that there's something significant, and that's like, you know, it didn't matter that you haven't done much with that yet. That could have all been, yeah. I wouldn't dismiss it because you hadn't, you didn't have pre-knowledge. That's really cool.
Thanks, Steph. Marty?
Well, I had an experience about 10 years ago that is the experience that like pulled me off the agnostic fence, although it didn't convince me of life after death or anything like that. But compared to you guys' profound experiences, it's very lightweight. But and I never considered it prayer, but the way Susan was defining prayer, what it was, I won't go into all why, but I was at a very like low point. And I really felt like I needed sympathy and comfort, and there was no one I could go to for it. And I really, really, really needed it. So I was like lying in bed at night and thinking, you know, even if I have to make up an imaginary guardian angel, I'm going to try and just imagine one to give me some imaginary sympathy just to make me feel better. So I'm lying there and I'm trying to imagine this like big little marble angel with big wings and everything, and trying to visualize this, and I'm just getting nothing. And then there was this thing that hit me. It felt like it slammed me so hard, like I almost like got knocked off the bed, you know. It was like the physical force of a slam. And then like I was encased in like jello, like a pressure that was very, very, very intense. And it was a feeling of the most intense compassion and joy and love that I could have ever imagined in my wildest dreams. And, you know, it was like really, really real. So whether you want to call that a prayer with an answer that something came and helped me or what, or endorphins, who knows, you know, because that little devil's advocate is always on my shoulder going, yeah, it's probably endorphins because you were just feeling so bad. But the way that it hit with such a slam and such a physical feeling, so I don't know. So if that's neither here nor there, so that's it. That's that story.
Good story.
Thanks. Chapter 9, as the last chapter for tonight. Monroe gets into the helpers during OBE. So that basically that chapter is devoted to the helpers and stories on the helpers. And how they don't always respond when he needs help. And he tells a lot of stories of different situations that come up where he got help and where he didn't get help. So I'm just going to pull up this poll real quick here for the last chapter. And just in case I forget, it's one question. Here's the results for the group tonight. He talks about in chapter 9 how he, most of the time, I believe all the time possibly, if I remember correctly, that he does not see any of his helpers. He only feels them. And then he wants to know, Monroe wants to know, how do they decide when they should help him? So he's curious how the helpers know when he actually needs help. Kind of, Susan, what you're talking about before. Do you need it or do you not need the help?
Like I said, I really think that when we go out of body, if we get good at it, and it's not just a one-time thing, when we get out of body, that for myself, when I offer myself, when I was 20 years old, probably, it was like, okay, this is fun. This is fun. I love this. But if there's some way that I can be useful while I'm doing this, I would like to be, but I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine how could I be useful except to maybe pull somebody out of body so they can experience it and it feels wonderful. But I couldn't, but you can't really imagine what they might have in store for you, these helpers, these beings, whatever. And so I actually think that they use us. They take us out. If we need help, then we get help. If we think we need help and we don't get help, because we have to learn a lot of things. Children have to learn to walk. Children have to fall sometimes. Children, it's sort of like that for us astrally, but they build us up. They work us. They're working up to a point where we have enough experience under our belt and enough things that scared us, enough things that we worked through, enough times that we understand that we have backup if it's needed, all of this. And I think that we all have that help. We don't always see them. On occasion, I have actually seen them, but most of the time not. I just know. I have confidence now, but I've got so many years of this under my belt now that it's not really confidence anymore. I just know that they're there because it's been that way all along. And so I assume that if I do something stupid, I'm either learning or they're letting me do something stupid so that I don't do it a second time or whatever. So I do think that they're there, and if we're able to get out, we can be useful. We can be useful back here. We can be useful to people who are out of body and having problems, people who are injured physically and having problems. We can be useful, but I don't think that we can even possibly imagine how, what they have in mind for us. I never would have imagined any of the things that I've experienced. I couldn't possibly have imagined any of that, or even tried to write something fiction that had some of this in it. It's just so, some of it gets so bizarre, but we're individuals. So I think that that's why all of our stories don't always line up with each other's. We have a different experience of the same thing sometimes, but I think that's the reason. I think that's because we are, as individuals, I think they watch us and they see, if they can teach us there some things that we can use when we come back here or be of use elsewhere. But we're all just so different. We get it in different ways.
Ronnie?
I do think that there's probably helpers there. I'm just guessing it's kind of like how it is with parents and children. You know, if you're teaching your child how to ride a bike, or you're teaching your child something, they're learning something, you know, I think a good parent will stay out of the way and let them handle it, and only jump in if they get, you know, too deep. And that's kind of my view on as far as the helpers.
Yeah,
Yeah, Robert
Yeah,
Monroe. Yeah.
believe that. I believe that too. I agree with that.
You get the,
I gotta drive, so I gotta head out. But the last thing I want to share on that is, if I may. So,
Steph, you can't share and jump ship. I'm sorry.
oh, I'll be listening to you. I just won't be able to talk without lots of
I'm
annoying.
joking.
I won't leave you till 8 o'clock. But so I agree that, like, for example, Monroe's experience of being trapped and no one responding to his prayer, there was probably someone there watching him, and they were probably not responding on purpose in order to let him figure it out himself in a specific way. And so the lesson there would have been, stop asking for someone to save you and use your intellect. And that's what he did, and that's what worked. And later in other books, he mentions that there's something really cool about the human intellect, that or intelligence that we develop here, that other non-Earth realms don't necessarily have so much of. And so that was his lesson. But the or the point of that would also be, well, you know, if his spiritual guide taught him to not use prayer, well, you know, perhaps the Christian structure doesn't work, right? Like, why would something spiritual teach him to not use prayer? And so I think that's why he put that experience in that chapter regarding the Bible and that whole construct. So yes, there's help, and yes, there's pretty much always a guide present, and yes, prayer works. However, it's not in that totalitarian sense, you know, like sovereignty is important too.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Time flies. It's past 8:30. I gotta run tonight.
Yeah, I do too.
And enjoy the Super Bowl if you're into that stuff.
Woo!
Go Niners.
Great night. As always, I'm learning a lot. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. See you all
Thanks for
next
having
time.
us.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Night.
Monday.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Night, night.